Hello, everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And I'm excited to be here. Happy Memorial Day. For those of you who are watching us live, we appreciate you joining us today. It has been one of those days where I was so excited to get on because there's something about the beginning music that always makes me like calm down and instantly be happy. So I love that. But anyway, today I have a special guest. Her name is Lisha Drews, and I am so excited to have her. She's not like anybody we've had on the show before. And I think that that's amazing because what she does is pretty impressive. And I want to say something for those of you who didn't read her bio. We will go over that a little bit, but she talks about gut health. And since it is Mental Health Awareness Month, I wanted to mention how important gut health is to your mental health. A lot of people think it's separate, but it really isn't. But let's bring her on and let her talk about her expertise. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too. It's fun to come on a holiday and be able to hang out and talk about all things health.
It's kind of funny because I always forget about holidays now, unless it's something like Christmas, because I work from home. So I'm like, oh yeah.
Right. I mean, I work today too.
Well, it's funny too, because I got to go play pickleball with my crew. So that was kind of nice. But anyway, enough about that. I would love for you to share about who you are and your own wellness journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am actually a registered nurse. And then after almost 10 years in the hospital, became a health coach, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And so with that being said, I have a pretty long history in the health field and really wanted to move into the wellness space because of some experiences I had myself, and also just kind of like what I was feeling in the hospital and how I wanted to be able to help people in a different way. So I always knew that something that I wanted to do was that I wanted to be working with people, that I wanted to help them. I wanted to encourage them in their health, and moving more into the wellness space has been something that I've been able to I've really, really loved. So a little backstory on me is, we all have our own health journey to come into this space, right? And so I was in my teens and early 20s, really, really struggling with things like, first of all, it started with acne. I had terrible acne as a teenager and even into my young 20s. And I was told like, well, it just kind of runs in the family. I did all the things, all the antibiotics, all the medications, just like over and over. Took years for it to get better. And then a little bit further down the road, I started to have migraines. And then when I was like in my young 20s, going on and off birth control with the acne. And then I noticed that I had some irregular period symptoms. And so like all of these things, I just kept being told like, oh, they're just kind of normal. They're part of being a woman. It's your hormones, stuff like that. But when I'd ask questions like, well, maybe should I not be like eating chocolate or like French fries? Like those are the foods that I thought maybe would be a problem. They're like, no, like food doesn't matter. Just take this medication. And so eventually I got tired of that being the answer because it wasn't working. So maybe if it had worked for me, I would have been satisfied with that, but it didn't. So I started to ask a lot more of my own questions and started to make some lifestyle changes. And as I did that and started to feel better, I realized there's really something here. And that's what led me to eventually actually like work on things like gut health and hormone health and skin health and like all of those things that I do today.
Something that's interesting to me is I have a lot of guests on the show, and I always have to preface, there's nothing wrong with Western medicine. I'm not saying don't go see your doctor, and that's not what I'm getting at. But I love that you're an RN, but now you said you wanted to get in the field of wellness. And I love that you can integrate everything that you know, because it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be everything because we're
Right.
holistic beings as it is. Mm-hmm. So did you experience any backlash with wanting to go the route that you did?
No, not really. I don't think so. I think for the most part, people that were in my family or close friends or things like that probably had a little bit more of that leaning anyway, or or at least open to it. Now, am I the one who gets made fun of for eating more vegetables than others, or for not like binging on alcohol or things like that? Like, yes, definitely that happens. But with that being said, like, I do live a pretty balanced lifestyle. So it's not always a red flag for people.
No, I love that. And I love too that you mentioned you're not all or nothing. You can still enjoy things, but you don't go crazy on them. And, you know, I've gotten to the point in my own wellness journey where, you know, if I want something that I know I'm not going to feel well afterwards, sometimes I'll eat it still. But, you know, I also am fully aware of what it's going to do to me before I choose it. So,
right.
You know, I tend to think of things a little bit differently as far as food. But so I would love for you to speak because I know I had issues with my hormones. And you mentioned before, like, it's just, oh, it's something you live with, take some, you know, pills and, you know, all these things. And that didn't even work for me. So what kind of issues do you typically see women that come to you? What do they typically deal with? So people might not feel so alone is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, absolutely. So one big thing that I talk about all the time is there's a difference between what's common and what's normal and healthy for you. And so just the idea that, like, if you're a woman, you're going to have painful periods, you'll have PMS, because we just all make PMS jokes, right? We don't think like maybe something's actually going on in your body. Just knowing like, okay, well, you'll probably have acne around your period, or you'll probably have gas and bloating around your period. Maybe it's normal to have irregular periods or to not be able to conceive. Like, because a lot of people are having those issues doesn't mean there's not an underlying cause. And so with that being said, a lot of times the kind of like most common remedy for everything is birth control. And with that being said, it's really more of a Band-Aid, and it doesn't look for the root cause. And so I have a ton of women coming to me. I think it's starting to, like, we're starting to become more aware as women and starting to ask more questions, which I think is so good. And they come to me and say like, well, I have these things, my periods are really painful. Maybe I'm wanting to get pregnant, but I don't even know if I can. And all I've been prescribed is birth control. And especially if you're wanting to get pregnant, well, birth control is like absolutely not what you want. But then again, for some women, it doesn't work also. So there's multiple levels there, but those are some of the big things that I see. And really what I see is that a lot of times those have been called normal. And that's not always by medical professionals. Sometimes it is by medical professionals, but a lot of times it's like your mom or your sister or your friend is like, well, I have that too. And then like your other friend also has it. So you're like, I guess it's normal. I guess it's just, you know, being a woman or being a mom. The other big thing I see is like super low energy. And especially after kids, I work with a lot of people who have had several kiddos or are, you know, in the midst of that process. And with that being said, that's another thing that is so normal in our culture, that moms are just tired and you just have to be tired. And I don't think that that's true. I think that you can feel really good, even if you're a woman, even if you're a mom, even if you own a business, like all of these things, there's still absolutely a root cause to the reason that you're feeling bad. So.
No, I love that. And I love that you made the distinction between common and normal because it doesn't make it normal. Why are we accepting that? You know, and I'm a huge person that always into saying like, even an absence of symptoms doesn't mean that you're healthy. Like, you know, you can thrive. You don't have to just be borderline that, you know, throughout your day. So I love that. But I'm curious, and this is actually even more for me, I guess, but so somebody comes to you and they have issues with their hormones. Now, somebody like myself, I worked in a pharmacy, a compounding pharmacy for years. And so I was ingesting hormones for a long time through my skin, through my, nose. I mean, I just ingested a lot of them. So one of the things is like, I've been told is you can't have kids. So I've never necessarily believed that. I'm wondering if I'm not asking you to like diagnose me or anything like that, but isn't it possible that even though something has been done in the past, that you can do something to make it better for yourself later?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely think so. Because I think, yes, it does matter what has happened in the past, but our bodies are really created to heal and they really are incredible in how they function. And yes, we have like tons of different things that are coming against them in our world right now. But with that being said, we still have amazing detoxification pathways. We have amazing repair pathways. And so one of my biggest things is just finding all of the areas that we can reduce stress on the body. And so detoxification is the big one, making sure your liver is really well supported. So especially with those hormones, if they've been building up over years of time, it might take time for them, it will take time for them to fully balance in your body or be out of the tissues that they shouldn't be in. But I don't think that that's impossible as long as your detoxification systems are working well. And so like your liver and your gut are huge. And then also even looking at like your thyroid function. If your thyroid's working really well, then you're going to have a better metabolism, and that's going to help even with detoxification. So yeah, I absolutely think that there's hope in so many situations where it's kind of been like a blanket statement of like, well, you can't have kids, or your periods will always be like this, or you'll never be able to lose weight because this. I just think that there are so many underlying causes that we can look at and so many things we can do to reduce stress. I'm talking about physical stress from things like gut issues or bacteria, parasites, liver detoxification issues. Like both of those are huge stressors on the body. And then when you have those, your thyroid's not going to function as well. Your hormones aren't going to function as well. You're feeling stressed. And then we're not even talking about like emotional stress, like from the last year. And then from, everything before that. It's not like we were perfectly unstressed before that. So there's different layers for sure. But once your body is in a place that it can feel safe, everything starts to move in the right direction.
I love that. And I love that idea of when your body feels safe, because it's kind of like, a relationship. It really is like, why would like it's wondering, what are you going to do to me next?
Yeah.
For those that are watching, if you could please explain a little bit about what you mean when you say detox, because there's so many different ideas out there, and like, does it need to be, supervised by a medical professional, for example, or is that something that you can do on your own? Are all detoxes created equal? Can you please share your thoughts about that?
Those are great questions. And so what I do when I talk about detoxification is I actually never do like a big 7-day detox, 30-day detox, whatever, where you're like drinking juice or not eating or taking a million pills. That's not the kind of detox that I do. I think that there are probably some of those that are totally fine and supervised by highly trained professionals. Totally fine. That's not what I do though, because I really believe in a gentle approach. And so when I'm talking about detoxification, I do things that support the liver versus like force it to detoxify. So some of my favorite things for hormone balance, a couple of my like quick tips are actually eating a raw carrot every day, or a couple of raw carrots every day can help bind to excess estrogen in your gut. And that can help your liver as well because it's a little bit less of a burden. So I use food a lot. And then supporting your liver with some of the nutrients that it needs that it's often missing. It can be things like collagen and bone broth, making sure that you're having some foods that are kind of like a little bit more bitter and stimulating to the bile flow in the liver, like things like dandelion greens or, kind of like just those like bitter greens. Beets are really good. So I do a lot of food-based things. And then we can also work on detoxification by things like sweating in the sauna or taking Epsom salt baths. There's a lot of like external ways that we can support your body in actually like moving toxins and just supporting its detoxification systems. And then again, like we look back at the gut and we see what we can start to repair there, because that's a huge detoxification system, obviously. And if there's food sitting around in your gut and toxins that aren't getting out of your gut, then you're just going to reabsorb those, and that causes more stress. So when I talk about detoxification, I'm really talking about supporting your body's natural processes And it's not that I never use supplements. I do use supplements for sure. But when I'm talking about detoxification, it's really more very gentle and supportive versus a kind of like big detox program. So I'm always very cautious of those because I have heard, you know, stories of people just having like a terrible time with detox, whether they have like a detox flu or they have, you know, terrible bowel issues, or like there's just all kinds of stuff that can go on. And so I do think something like that, if you choose to do that, definitely needs to be in conjunction with a medical person who knows how to do that. And I say medical, but it could be a naturopath or someone who is trained in heavier detoxification.
No, I love that. And I love that you take a gentle approach, because there's no need to torture yourself if you're trying to heal.
Right.
The whole point, it's kind of counterproductive in my mind. Like, why are you putting yourself through this extra stress? And it is stressful for your body, you know? No, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've done those crazy ones before. Because I could handle them, but I wouldn't recommend it for anybody at all. I mean, it's a little, I'm a little crazy, but yeah.
It can be extreme for sure.
Exactly. It's a little, and you know, something else too, is like I'm 43. So I spent 43 years getting to this place. Why am I trying to cure it all in like 3 days, 7 days, 30 days, you know?
Right.
It does. What's the hurry? I mean, obviously I want to get better as, you know, time goes on, but why do I need to hurt myself in the process?
I really think it's all about kind of like just supporting we're not going to just support this for like a week and then hope everything's done. You know, it's just going to be built into your lifestyle so that you can continue to move forward versus basically like one and done and hope that everything's fixed.
Yeah, because if you're going to create the environment that it started in, and again, then you're going to have the same results again. So
right, exactly.
Yeah. Something that you touched on briefly was parasites, and I am fascinated by the idea of parasites because I know a little bit about them, but a lot of people aren't aware that they have parasites, or like, could you just speak more about that, please?
Yeah. So I do functional gut testing with most of my clients. That's actually like my very most foundational test, because I find that we never find a normal gut. Even in like the healthiest people, I work with plenty of people who are taking good care of themselves already, but there's something else going on. And so we don't always find parasites, but we find them more than most people would expect. So I think if I was just going to guess a number, I'd say maybe somewhere around like 30% of the tests that I have come back, there's some sort of parasite. And so with that being said, that can definitely show up in different ways. It's not always obvious. It can be just really basic symptoms like constipation or inflammation or things like that are really very common. And people wouldn't necessarily think that there's a parasite issue there. So with that being said, there's multiple different types of parasites. You don't have to go to a third world country for that to happen. You don't have to be drinking out of a mountain stream. I had somebody sneak in. But with that, like, they really can be common, and mostly they come from food contamination. And we all eat out sometimes, right? And we all have times where maybe we don't know the quality of the food that we're eating at home, or maybe we don't wash a vegetable as well as we should, or the chicken's a tiny bit undercooked, or maybe it touched a cutting board that we didn't realize, you know, like there's some that we can't be perfect in everything. So with that being said, like parasites can come from really basic places like that, even if you're pretty careful and you're like, well, I'm a clean person, I wouldn't have a parasite, right? And they can come from animals too. And so especially if you have kiddos, sometimes it can be like animal to kid, and then it can travel around in a family. So with that being said, when you have a parasite in your body, it's really hard for the rest of your gut to be healthy because it's a big stressor for one. But they can kind of like break down the lining of the intestines. They can, some specific parasites can really pull nutrients from your body, like minerals and things like that. And so I've had people joke too, like, oh, well, it wouldn't be so bad to have a parasite because at least I'd lose weight, right? And with that being said, usually no, you have to be pretty severe to actually have that happen. But that's why I think that testing is always really important, because it's not obvious who would have one and who wouldn't. And there are natural, like, herbal remedies that we can use, or you can use antibiotics to actually get rid of a parasite. And then you're moving forward in your gut healing journey versus having something there that you really have no idea.
Find that hormone health and gut health kind of go hand in hand, or is it just that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm just curious because for me that seems logical, because those are the two issues that I've always had the most issue with. And like you said, just all these things that I've just sort of dealt with my whole life without understanding, maybe I could actually do something to fix this. Or so my question, I guess, would be, what are common irritants as far as food, or common things that in America that we tend to eat that maybe aren't so great for either our gut health or our hormone health?
Yeah. So I think that everyone has a different answer for this. The most common answer that I see, like, in the health community, is going to be a pretty broad, like, gluten, dairy, soy, eggs, corn, nightshades. Like, you can just go down the list, and there's a huge list. With that being said, I think that part is very individualized. So 3 things that I really focus on with food are vegetable oils. I'm very much not a fan of vegetable oils because they can be so inflammatory. So things like canola oil, what are some of the other ones? Like soy oil. There's multiple ones, but the ones that are, like, categorized as vegetable oil, those are so highly processed. And then they just can cause, like, kind of an inflammatory cascade in your body, or more of the, like, free radical kind of effect in your body that you really don't want. So that's one huge one that I like to stay away from. And those actually, those polyunsaturated fatty acids can work in synergy with estrogen for estrogen to be higher than it should be. So when you're consuming a lot of those, you can actually cause estrogen issues almost directly from that. Not totally directly, but almost directly from that. So that's a huge no for me, because so many of us do have estrogen dominant symptoms when it comes to hormones. And then also with your gut, most of the clients that I work with, and I'm going to say like 90+%, have an issue with gluten, whether they know it or not. So sometimes we do food sensitivity testing and we see it come up right away. Sometimes we don't, and we just remove it, and they start to notice things are better, like anxiety is better, mood is better, sleep is better, joint pain is better, gut health is better, like digestion. So there's multiple layers. So that's often, almost always, someone that I just say, we're going to remove it for 3 months and see how you feel, if you can try to reintroduce it or not. And most of the time it's like not even worth it because things are so much better. So those are my big 2. And the other one is, of course, quality. And so I really think there's a huge difference in quality in organic food versus non-organic. And with dairy, that's one that it's very individualized based on the person, if they can handle it or not. But I really do see like raw, organic, whole milk dairy as a different food than our processed, homogenized, pasteurized, antibiotic, and hormone injected dairy. So quality is really, really huge in multiple foods.
No, I love that you brought that up, because one of my things is I lived in Italy for a year, and well, a little over a year. But anyway, the point is that there the food is different. It's all fresh. Mm-hmm. You could, I didn't have to try and lose weight. It just fell off, and I was just eating, and I ate whatever I wanted basically, but nothing had preservatives. Like the milk quality was phenomenal. I mean, it lasted maybe 3 days, so you got to drink it fast, but right. But yeah, no, I think it really does matter about food quality. I'm curious what your thoughts are between, say, organic versus local.
I think that it's really going to depend. If you have like a farmer's market and you're going there, you can ask them what they do to their crops. And so we don't know what they do. We think that organic on the grocery store shelf is safe, But if you can actually go talk to the person and they can tell you like, this is what I put on my plants and this is what I don't, then you're going to have a lot straighter answer than our like possibility of pesticides on the organic fruit, or maybe it was cross-contaminated, or maybe it's fake organic, or like whatever rabbit hole you go down. With that being said, like I still will buy organic at the grocery store because I think it's going to be better. And I'm just trusting that it is for the most part. But I do think that like growing things yourself and buying local, like I think that we're going to get better nutrient density from that. I think that there's community in that. You're supporting someone local versus a big company. So I think there's huge nutrient and like community interpersonal benefits from local. So I would always go with that as long as I can ask and have a general idea of like what's actually on those products.
I love that because you bring up a really good point. A lot of those small farmers, they can't pay for the organic seal, even if they are farming organic as well. So, you know, I like to support them as well, but at least you can ask, like you said, you can find out what's really going on. I'm with you on that one. And then you are building community. That's such a great point. Yeah, we do have to go to commercial break, so we'll be right back. Okay. So isn't she amazing? Oh my gosh, I could just talk hormones and health and gut health forever, but we do need to go to a commercial break. For those of you who are watching live, hello, thank you for joining us on Memorial Day. Yeah, that's right. I actually remembered. This is what happens too when you live in foreign countries a lot. You forget which holidays are which. But anyway, like I mentioned, we do need to go to commercial break. So we'll be right back after these messages.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. For those of you who are just joining, my name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. Memorial Day, woo woo, all day. My guest today is Lisha Drews. Let's bring her back. Hello, welcome back.
Hey.
So before I was thinking of a million questions that I wanted to ask you, but I really would love for people to be able to have the opportunity to work with you. And I know you've got this new program that you were telling me about before the show. If you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about that, I would love that.
Yeah, so I have something this summer, and it's really only for June and July. We're just headed into June tomorrow. I can't believe it. But I have this special option because I actually am going to be going on maternity leave in September. And so I wanted to have an option where I can still help women really get some answers on their hormones, because I think that's what we're all wanting at this point when we've had years of hormone symptoms. And so what I'm doing is I'm offering a functional hormone test, which is a Dutch test, which is really a really awesome option. The people at Dutch are amazing, and they have created a really, just for one thing, it's really doable because you can do it at home, but it's also a very accurate test. And it's a lot more than you get with just like hormone blood testing, because you get to check your estrogen levels, your progesterone, your testosterone, and actually see how your body is metabolizing them as well. So not just like a one time we see what's in your blood, but you actually get to see how your body's processing it, which gives us a lot of information into what might be causing problems. And then it's a full adrenal panel as well. And so I've mentioned several times in this interview, like your body feeling safe. And this is one way that we can tell how your body's feeling. And so we can look at this adrenal panel, which is cortisol and DHEA and a couple of other hormones throughout the day, or we can see how your body is reacting to stress. And so what we do is we do this hormone test, and then I send intake forms and we do a full analysis of your lifestyle as well. So we look at your test, and then I give you a full analysis of your lifestyle and help you understand which things are stressing your body out, what could be causing hormone issues for you, and really just digging in to each of those areas and making sure that you have a very step-by-step action plan going forward so that you know what you need to change, how you need to change it. And so we actually sit down for half a day together. It'll be virtual through Zoom, but we sit down for half a day, go over your results, dig into your lifestyle, and you walk away with not only a plan that we've talked about, but like in hand, a plan that you have written out for the next couple of months so that you can move forward and know what to do, versus a lot of the Googling and guessing and trying to get some answers. And so I'm so excited about that. I think it's going to be so much fun.
I think so too. And I love that you said it's on Zoom. So they don't have to even be in the same state as you. It could just be anybody who needs help. And I love that.
Yeah.
And also then, like you said, nobody's trying to Dr. Google it. So
exactly.
You never know. You never know. That's the problem. Things that sound great. So all they need to do is go to your website right here. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So at that website, there are a couple of ways to contact me. You can book a call with me and we can chat and figure out if that's really the best option for you. I offer a totally free intro call because I really only want to work with people who are going to be a great fit and who I can 100% be able to help. And so that's why I offer that call, so I can hear what's been going on with you. It's really all about you. I really like to just kind of like pamper my clients in that time and make sure that they know that I'm here to listen. And we really start off with that being the main focus, is just hearing what's been going on. And then I'm able to share, like, this is what I would recommend for you. This is what I think would help. And if that's something they want to go forward with, perfect. If it's a good fit for both of us. And if not, it's okay too, because again, like, I want to make sure that I'm helping the right women who are ready for it and who are looking for what I do. So that's where we would start. And at my website, there's a link that you can book a hormone strategy call, is what it's called.
And I think that that's really important too, because a lot of people think that they want, because in the wellness industry, a lot of people ask for help, but what they're really asking for is for you to fix it for them, or it be like some sort of like magic pill or something.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work like that. And it's okay. You're just not ready yet. It's no harm, no foul. But I love that you have that time so that people can get to know you a little bit better and trust you as well, because sometimes it's hard to talk about stuff that's personal, but no, I love that. That's really wonderful. And so that's just for the next 2 months, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I actually do have a couple of spots left in the next couple of weeks for my like more full coaching experience, which is at least 3 months. But like I said, I'm going on maternity leave in September. So those spots are very limited, but I do still have 2 left before basically November is when I'll be starting that again. And that's really more of, if you want full testing, if you want to look at your thyroid and your gut and your minerals and like all of these other things. And that's why we have the call, to see what's the best fit. But
I like that.
The hormone intensive is a great place to start.
I love that. Yeah, no, it really is because, especially for somebody like me where I tend to know a lot of stuff, but, maybe I actually need to know more about my own health than I think I do, or it's not at all what I think it is. I love that you have that as an option, like not as an option, as what you offer. Sorry. That's pretty amazing. I love that. I'm curious too, what are your thoughts about sugar?
Sugar. So I think that's another one that I think sugar can actually be like a little bit over demonized in my mind. Because again, I think that it does come back to that quality. So obviously I think we literally all of us, including babies, probably know that high fructose corn syrup is really bad for you, that soda, like these processed sugar Twinkies and like donuts, we know those things are bad for us because they taste great and we just know. With that being said, I do think that even more of the natural forms of sugar, like things that I do actually recommend that my clients use when they want something sweet, is going to be things like maple syrup or honey or coconut sugar. So things that are very near the natural form, and not bleached and not processed and not overconsumed. And so I actually really do believe that our bodies, they do run on sugar. Like we literally have sugar in our blood to keep our brain going. And so with that being said, it has to stay balanced. And so I really believe in making sure, I don't believe in low carb, or no carb for women who are wanting to heal their hormones, because in most cases that I've seen, that has been a bigger stressor. And that doesn't mean forever, but definitely for the time being, and like improving fertility and those type of things. It's easier for our bodies to actually get carbohydrates and be able to use those right away, and then use the protein for things like supporting your liver and building muscle and all of the building blocks that our body needs. But when we're not balancing healthy carbohydrates, things like fruit and root vegetables as your primary sources, and then using sweeteners as kind of a secondary special treat kind of thing, and gluten-free grains as a sometimes food, I think that all of those things can work really well together to be able to actually keep your blood sugar balanced. And so I think when you're eating really processed forms of sugar, usually those are in conjunction with those vegetable oils that I really hate, like that is going to cause an inflammatory reaction in your body. There's a very good chance you're not having quality protein with it. And I think that's where we really run into a big problem. So I personally eat honey and maple syrup and things like that, not by the gallon, but I definitely put them on things sometimes.
No, I love that too, because a lot of people think too, when you're saying carbs, that means like French fries and, potato chips.
Yeah.
That's not,
Right.
not exactly what you had in mind when you're talking about carbs.
Right. Not for every day.
Yeah, no, definitely not. No, I did a Candida Cleanse a while back, and that was hard. I mean, it was, I think 30 days, but my goodness, I had no idea. But that's when I discovered that I had a gluten sensitivity, and I thought it was a bunch of like people just talking and like it was a fad or something, because what's wrong with wheat and things like that. I'm like, oh, right. Now I understand.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think you even mentioned like being in Italy, they have their wheat is different than ours is. Our American wheat is a mess. So I don't know that it's actually the wheat itself. It's just the fact that ours has been so incredibly processed and GMO, and our soil has been really depleted. Like there's just multiple layers, I think, that make our American wheat so much of an issue. But people will ask me a lot of times about like spelt or einkorn flour or things like that. And my answer usually is, let's take gluten 100% out for some time, and let's work on really like decreasing inflammation for you, healing your gut, making your body not feel so stressed out so your hormones can be safe to function. And then like, yes, maybe that's the only kind of gluten we'll ever reintroduce, but let's try that with some like spelt sourdough or something. I mean, honestly, it took me 5 years probably before I even would go to that.
Wow.
But that's something that that it can be an option. It just depends on the person.
So I'm curious too, because I don't know anything about like the labeling, but when it says gluten-free, is it actually like, or is that kind of like possibly not true?
Yeah. Usually when it has a gluten-free label, it does have to be pretty well tested to be gluten-free. If it just doesn't have wheat in it, then it can maybe possibly be contaminated. But a lot of times it'll say on the back, like processed in a facility with wheat or something like that. And then that's when you know that it's not necessarily gluten-free. But from what I understand, for the most part, gluten-free is pretty well regulated.
Sorry, I just had to put this comment up there. It's pretty funny. Anyway. So my question too is, when somebody is trying to, what are like some hints or ideas or things that maybe are clues that if I could say the word, hormones are not in alignment with how they should be? What are some signs of something like that? Could it be something like insomnia?
Yeah, so it depends. It definitely depends where you are in your hormone cycle. So when you're getting closer to perimenopause or menopause, then a lot of times those like low hormone symptoms will start to show up, like low estrogen symptoms, like hot flashes or insomnia. Those can be things that can come up. But most of the time I work with women who are still cycling, and that can be anywhere from, I think a lot of times we think of like women in their childbearing years as like 20s and 30s or something like that. But it's literally from like 10 or 12, depending on when you start your period, to like mid to late 40s, hopefully 50. Because the truth is you actually do want to be fertile as long as possible, because it's a sign of health, and have a healthy cycle as long as possible. And so a lot of women are like, woo, done with that. I'm glad to be done with my period early. But I do see that, even that, as a sign of like significant stress on the body. And so I did want to go back. I actually forgot what your question was just now. So hold that and bring it back to me in a second. But I wanted to go back. You asked about if I believe that the gut health is really directly related to hormones. And what I mostly see is that if your gut is off, whether that's parasite, bacteria, yeast, all of those infection things, that causes stress. But also if your gut is off in some of those areas or other areas where you're having issues with detoxification, whether that's going to be like if you have constipation, or if you have issues actually like absorbing your food, all of those things do cause stress in the body. And I know I keep saying that, but the truth is, as women, it's a really big investment to reproduce. And so ovulation is a big investment. Our bodies have to feel safe, to a certain extent anyway, to have healthy ovulation happen so that we optimally can get pregnant. And so with that being said, like, we don't see the same hormone changes in a man when he's stressed, because first of all, his hormone cycle is 24 hours and ours are 28 days. So it's a little more obvious for women, but like, we have a huge investment when we get pregnant, because we're pregnant for a long time and then we're breastfeeding for a long time optimally. And like, that's the way it at least used to be, and how our bodies were made. So with that being said, again, I think that any type of stress on the body, but especially stress with gut and detoxification, can definitely very directly play over into hormones. So I wanted to just come back to that piece, because that's why I find that to be so foundational.
No, and I think I'm so glad that you explained that further, because I never even thought about it before. It's like I've been a woman my whole life and I don't even understand my hormones that well. And it's been an issue for me. And I know I'm not alone in that. So
no, I know. There's so much that I wish we learned in school. So much.
I know, definitely. I love that you're here. I've been looking forward to you being on the show, because, I don't know why it's not, there's things that we learn in school that don't make sense to me, but yet we don't really learn about women's health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
It's so true. And I didn't give you the link for this, but on my website, there's like a little pop-up for a free hormone guide. And what that actually will give you is a little bit of insight into maybe what's kind of normal for hormones and what's not, but also into the 4 different phases of your hormone cycle, because it's not just period or no period. We actually have different ways that we might feel throughout the month based on where we are in our cycle. That's something that I talk about a lot, and it's definitely like a kind of a long conversation. But the truth is, we are going to have different responses to hormones throughout our cycle. And even that can be something that nobody really knows about, but that we can use to optimize our hormones and optimize our health. So a little bit of that is in that guide. So I'd love for you to get that. If you're like, I want to learn more about my hormones, like, where do I start? This little free guide is a great place to start.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I remember your question was just kind of like, how do we know if something's off with our hormones? So
no, that was perfect.
So symptoms like irregular periods and painful periods and PMS and all of those are kind of more of an obvious sign. But things like low energy, low libido, you don't have to have low libido just because you're a busy woman or a mom. That's really a sign that there's not really like an overflow of that energy. And that again comes from the place of like, it's a big investment to have a baby. So why would you want to go there when you're already burnt the heck out? So that's even a sign. Like, low libido is not just a sign that you're a woman. It literally means that something's going on in your body. But yes, insomnia can be a huge thing as well. And I see that as an issue with adrenals a lot of times, but it could be blood sugar balance as well. And either of those things can play into hormone issues. So when your progesterone is lower, that often can cause trouble sleeping. There's a lot of different symptoms, even trouble losing weight or weight gain, like around your hips or your belly. Those can be hormone issues, and not even just estrogen and progesterone, but cortisol is a hormone too. And so that can play a big role in kind of like issues with weight and your thyroid hormones too. So hormones are a really big word because there's so many in our body.
Yeah, it's kind of how we run.
Basically, yeah.
So I'm sorry. I'm just like thinking, I want to go to your website right now and like download that. No, I'm so excited to have you on the show, even just for me, because it's like, all these things that I think the biggest one is that we really don't even understand our own bodies. And I keep on coming back to that because it's shocking. Like, you've lived your whole life without even really understanding. It's not like you need to understand how a light bulb works and still use it. Like, you don't. You can just turn the light on. But you're living in your body. And wouldn't it be nice if it was optimal?
Yeah.
If you weren't doing things to hurt it, on purpose. No, I love that so much. I'm curious, we're running low on time, but I'm really curious about this is, how did you end up in particular, like, specializing in this arena? Is it something that you noticed that, people needed, or like your own personal interest, or how did that happen?
Yeah. So in the last couple of years of doing kind of this like functional, holistic health coaching that I've started doing, I really did kind of start working with everyone. I would kind of just like, because mostly I was working on gut health, and everybody needs help with gut health. So that's really where I started. But the truth is, I really found that who I loved to work with were women and moms, especially. And it's really because my story is similar to theirs. And I think that's where we come from a lot of times, right? Is when we can really identify with someone and we can relate to them, and we've had the same problems and we've come through those same problems and we're feeling better. That's who we can help the most, is that person who is in the same place. And that's my heart, is to help my clients as much as possible. And so that's really the true root of that. I also see that, part of my story, it really comes back to what I've experienced. And so what I can help with the most, but part of my story is I had all kinds of symptoms that I mentioned before, and I just kept getting put on like different kinds of birth control. And some of them actually made me kind of crazy, and they made my migraines worse and like all the things. And I just felt really not well taken care of. And I'm not speaking against doctors or women's health doctors at all. I just didn't feel like I was really supported when I asked questions like when I first got married, like, is there any like natural way of birth control? And I was literally told like, no, that doesn't work. You just need to take these pills. Not like, well, you could try this or here's some options, but like, no, that doesn't work. And so answers like that, and answers like when I had an IUD and I started to have some of the symptoms that she listed as side effects, and I went back and I was told, no, it's all in your head. It's not from the IUD. I was like, but you just told me it could cause this. And I was basically told like, I'll take it out if you want because you think it'll make you feel better, but it's kind of in your head. And so just kind of some really like unsatisfying answers like that really gave me the heart to listen to women and to help them versus have them experience what I've experienced. And I have so many women reach out to me with that same story of like, I wasn't really heard. They didn't have an answer for me. And, you know, a lot of times I just don't think that that's how our healthcare system is built. I don't think that it's at all someone like not wanting to help. It's just not the answers that any of us have been given.
You know, something that, thank you for saying it's in your head, because, you know, that you were told that, because first of all, brain is very powerful. So even if that's true, that's still your experience.
Right.
You're still having those symptoms. So they're not make-believe, you know? So that's something that's always driven me a little crazy about that. Just because you can't figure out how to help me doesn't mean there isn't an answer.
Right.
And so that's why you're here.
Right,
to
exactly.
help women. Oh, I love that so much. We are running a little low on time, so I want to make sure that people can also reach out to you on Instagram. You had mentioned that this is a good way for people to see about you, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So I've been on Instagram for a while now, so I have a lot of information. If you're like, oh man, I think I might have a hormone issue, like I want to know more about what that could look like. I have a lot of posts on estrogen and progesterone and how to understand your cycle and irregular periods, just like all of the things that I've talked about a lot more in depth. And you're also, feel free to just reach out and send me a message. I'd love to hear that you saw this, and just send me your questions. I'm always answering messages. And also I always tell people there's really no such thing as TMI with me, because what I do, like, there's just not. So it's never a question of like, do you have to be embarrassed to admit this? I've probably heard it before.
Yeah, you have. That's the thing. And I mean, it is intimate, no matter how you look at it. It is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, you know, not a part of your body that you necessarily share with people, either gut or hormones. So, you know, it's okay. It's okay to ask questions.
It is.
It's kind of funny to me how embarrassed we can get, you know, about our own bodies. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm guilty of it too from time to time, but I've definitely gotten a lot more over it as I get older.
Yes, absolutely.
We have about 2 minutes left. Is there any last final thoughts that you would love to share with the audience, or tips, or maybe something that, you know, isn't common knowledge?
Yeah, 2 minutes. Let me think.
I know it's kind of.
What do I have in 2 minutes? You know, I think one thing that I would say is, if you feel like there's something going on and you feel like something's not normal and it's not okay for you, then asking for help is always a good option, because the worst that you can find out is that everything is fine. Honestly, or that's not the worst that you can find out, but like investing in asking for answers and like finding out what's going on, most of the time there is something going on that you can work on and you can feel better. And so I think, especially as women, it's really hard for us to ask for help, or even to prioritize ourselves sometimes, because it seems like we need to help everyone else, or there's always like someone else who maybe needs it more. But the truth is, we do have to be our own advocates and speak up for ourselves. And that's something that I wish I had learned sooner, is definitely that being able to actually ask for help versus trying to do things on my own is not only like a lot more helpful, and you can skip a bunch of the trial and error, but also it's really, really freeing to value yourself in that way, that you understand that you're worth time and you're worth money, and that you can invest in yourself. I think that even that can be a huge growth period. I know it has been for me.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's a fabulous point too. It's an investment in yourself, and why aren't you worth it?
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, that is all the time that we have for today. So thank you so much for being on the show. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It's been so fun.
Yay. Awesome. Have a great night. That was amazing. I could actually talk to her for hours and hours and hours just out of curiosity and awe. That's a good word too. Awe. Anyway, we do need to get going because it is the end of our hour, and we'll be back on Thursday. Have a great week, everyone.